Welcome to the Expat Empire Podcast, the podcast where you can hear from expats around the world and learn how you can join them. Hey guys, before we get to the interview, I want to remind you that we're offering free 30-minute consulting calls to anyone interested in moving abroad. Whether you're thinking about retiring somewhere warm, starting the next chapter of your international career, or even becoming a digital nomad, we're ready to help you think through the next steps in your journey. Send us a message at expatempire.com and schedule a call today. With that said, let's start the conversation. Hey Spencer, thanks so much for joining us today on the Expat Empire Podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, David.
Yeah, it's good for us to catch up again. I know it's been quite a few years since our university days, but I'm excited to dive into everything that you've been up to, especially in South America and Latin America. So it'd be great if you could just kick it all off by telling us a bit about where you're from originally, where around the world you've lived so far, and where you're living right now.
Sure. Happy to dive into that. And yeah, it's great to catch up a little bit. I think we always kind of shared this. We already knew we both had the passion kind of for foreign language and living abroad, even back then in the university days. So I'm kind of glad to see we've both been able to pursue that in our own capacity. So yeah, so I'm actually originally from Dallas, Texas. Went to school at the University of Texas in Austin. From there, I moved to New York City and worked in IB, investment banking at JP Morgan for a couple of years. From there, I moved down to Santiago, Chile. Worked there for a couple of years for a local Chilean investment bank. And then from there, I actually started my own startup. We've worked through a few different SaaS products over the last 8 years at this point. It's been a little while. And yeah, it's given me the opportunity to move between, Argentina, so Buenos Aires, then back to Santiago in Chile. Finally went over to Barcelona in Spain for 4 years, which was amazing. Loved that place. Lived actually for a few months in a small town called Cornudella, which is just outside of Barcelona. And then currently I'm living in Boulder, but with the idea of kind of splitting time between Europe, especially Spain, and mostly Colorado, but kind of all over the States.
Excellent. Yeah, you've been to a lot of cool places, some that I've been to and many that I haven't. So I'm excited to be able to hear your stories, but also hopefully see them myself one day. But if you could just take us back to the early days. So how did you get this interest in, learning Spanish, let's say, and also trying to just generally be in that region? Was there a particular country that caught your eye, or a trip, or any certain experience that really started it all?
Yeah, an experience for sure. But I would say it all started in high school in Texas. I mean, everyone's required to take some basic Spanish classes. I did that. I honestly don't know why, but for whatever reason, I absolutely loved it from day one, like from the get-go. It was like one of my favorite classes. I think it partially has to do with the fact that I love math and patterns. And so foreign language kind of made sense to me. I was naturally, not like amazing, but I think I was naturally like relatively good at it. And more importantly, just loved it, like had a passion for it. Thought it was super cool. But I don't think I'd been abroad at all at that point. And then my parents took me on a trip, our first trip to Europe. I guess I was probably 16. And we went to Italy, went all over, went to Positano, went to Sardinia, to Rome, Lake Como. And that experience definitely opened my eyes, because that's when I first saw kind of the merge of, this is not just theoretical in the classroom, taking tests and doing assignments, but I'm sort of seeing how this thing that I really like can be applied in the real world in a really cool way. So that definitely sparked the interest. And I think from that moment, I was like, okay, I definitely want to live abroad. When I went to school, I mean, kind of the easiest way to do that, right, was study abroad, like most people typically do. So I pursued that. Thankfully at UT, there was so many options. It was super easy for us to do it. And I think the first place I went was Spain, which was amazing. Went to a town called Santander in northern Spain. I had an amazing experience and like learned a lot, but I felt like something a teeny bit was like missing from that experience, because I went with a group of maybe like 50 UT like students from our school, which was great because I came away with some like amazing, like honestly at this point, lifelong friends. Like I was in the wedding of like one of the guys that I went on this trip with, so I did come away with some amazing experiences and great friends, but I felt like I spent too much time just kind of interacting with people from my country, like not even from like just the US, like from going to my exact same like college. So, I mean, with a whole lot of shared experiences and speaking probably more English than I wanted to. And it was for a short time. It was like for a month and a half. So I felt like from there, okay, I really want to do this again, but I want to go somewhere where I'm going to be forced to interact with more people from other countries that are not the US, speak more Spanish, something that seems a little bit more foreign to me. I don't want just like a big kind of University of Texas party like in another country, which is super cool, fun, but maybe not totally what I was looking for experience wise. So then I went down to this pretty small town called Cordoba in Argentina. It's kind of right if you drew a line from Buenos Aires to Santiago, Chile. It's right in the middle. And it's a really cool place, and definitely there, it's like not an international tourist destination, you know. Right. So I was much more forced to like make local friends, and I was speaking mostly in Spanish, and had friends from Brazil and Germany and Argentina and Colombia and kind of all over. So that was super cool. And just from there, I mean, not to kind of go on and on. I mean, from there, I knew that was a passion of mine, and I pursued it. In a variety of ways. Like I knew I wanted my first job to have something to do with Latin America and with the Spanish language. So I got into like a Latin American M&A group at JP Morgan. Knew I wanted to live abroad, moved down there, you know, and so on. It was those initial, I think, experiences that told me like, hey, this is something I want to pursue.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot in there, and I'm sure we won't get to all of that in our conversation today, but it's like, there's so much, you know, great stuff. And as you said, you were able to visit these different countries and cities, and you got an experience with your university and then kind of more on your own. So there's so much in there. But how did you think about trying to take that, especially from your, you know, high school days of studying Spanish into your career? Like, how did you know what to study? I know, because I know you, that you didn't just study kind of the Spanish language or the culture. So how did you marry that with something else, and then ultimately to find those opportunities, even in the US and New York, to be able to leverage those skills?
Mm-hmm, for sure. So, and I'm sure, you know, everyone can, of course, like find their own path. And this is not necessarily something that would even necessarily work for other people. But just for me, although I think it certainly can work, but for me, I guess I always thought I wanted to study in school. I didn't want to just study Spanish, for example, because I wanted to build other skill sets. And I knew that, you know, being like something like a translator or something like that, like I thought I probably wanted to pursue a career outside of that, like specifically in business. Like I already had a passion kind of for business and entrepreneurship and finance. And so that's what I studied. That was my main, if you want to call it, like main major. But what I did is I took extra classes, and I think I had some AP credits. So it was like maybe a bit easier to do. But I knew I wanted to study both. I wanted to have the main focus be the skill set I was trying to build, which is like finance, entrepreneurship, business. But I definitely wanted to supplement it with my kind of passion for Spanish. And I thought it could possibly not even end up only being a hobby, just something I was interested in. But also I thought that possibly that could be something that differentiated me later from other candidates, or allowed me to pursue some sort of business opportunity, which would be I would be uniquely positioned to pursue, because I had these skills of, you know, having lived abroad or having, you know, fluency in another language or something like that. But it was always like, I wanted to make sure I got that core skill set as a primary goal in college, and as a primary goal for my first job. So like, I knew I wanted to live abroad and work abroad at some point, but I just thought it was going to be so much easier to get a job in the States first, prove myself, if you will, and then use that experience to find something abroad. And I personally am actually glad I did that. It is this kind of what I was getting at earlier. I'm sure that's not the only way. I'm sure if you're really psyched on it, you could just go directly and make it happen. But for me, that seemed to be a good path, especially since I wanted to pursue investment banking, which already is like a relatively competitive, kind of hard to find, you know, a job like right out of school. So my compromise was, again, like I looked at all the investment banks, the top ones that I was interested in. I was like, which one of these has a program that has to do with my passion of like Spanish or like the Latin American region? And so that's where I found I was super lucky. I mean, I just found JP Morgan just happened to have one of the best like Latin American focused M&A groups. And I was lucky enough to, you know, get an offer there and move to New York, which is also like a super international city. I thought it'd be like a great launch point for going abroad anyway, just in terms of like networking, meeting people. And so that's how I thought about it. I was like, get the core skill set, get the job first in the States, work a couple years, and then let's see what doors open.
Sure. Actually, maybe to get into the weeds a little bit, as far as getting that first job, I can imagine, I mean, did they test your Spanish ability? Like how did you get the job on the Latin American desk? I think that's what I'm wondering. I imagine a lot of listeners are wondering as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. So to clarify, my Spanish was very good at the time, but I don't even think it was necessarily business fluent. I think it was, and there's all sorts of grades of like what is fluent. There's so many different like levels and shades of gray. But I mean, for me, like at the time, I could very fluently talk about my hobbies, what I like to do, traveling, things like that. But like walking someone through like a discounted cash flow model and like comps and talking about like, M&A in Spanish, I don't think that was totally there. No, I don't think. It definitely wasn't there. Like looking back, I think at the time I thought I was better than I was because I lived abroad for a year and I really had pursued it quite passionately and, was like reading books all the time and like movies and like just always trying to get better. But I really didn't have that like business fluency. So the only reason I was able to get a job in this Latin American M&A group is because really it's corporate finance. So like most of the work they do is in English, like the presentations they do. And so, and even the team, I mean, most of the team members are from like Argentina or Chile, but there's team members from Brazil. And there's a couple team members from other countries in Europe who weren't necessarily native Spanish speakers. So a lot of even our internal conversations, a lot of them were still in English. But a fair amount was in Spanish too. But so that's why I could get the job because it was cool because actually a lot of the members of that team were native Spanish speakers and their second language was English. So, but I mean, super good. Like many of them were like completely business fluent and such, but it certainly didn't hurt them to have like a native English speaker on the team just for like making presentations and stuff like that. But again, I was super junior. I was like, lowly first and second year analyst. So it's not like I was, really kind of the, spokesperson for JP Morgan to like the CEOs of like the clients they're working with on these like, $100 million, or $1 billion deals.
Sure.
Yeah, that's how
okay,
it worked.
Got it.
But and then from there, I kept learning more, and I was getting more and more exposure, and I was actually getting exposure to the business side of foreign language, if you want to call it that. And I think really that's when, maybe a bit more so when I went down to South America, to Chile, and worked for that investment bank, because there then the work was in Spanish. I think if I had to give one recommendation, getting a job where you're forced to speak the language, like that's going to take you to true, if you want to call it true fluency. That, or at least for me, like that's what really kind of made the big difference.
So how did you make that transition then to that more local investment bank?
I was super fortunate. One of the members of the JP Morgan's Latin American M&A team that I was a member of was from Chile, and he and I got along really well. And so he knew like a bunch of his friends who were still in Santiago in Chile worked at this local bank called LarrainVial. And they told him like, hey, man, we're looking for someone to add to our team, but like we want it to be someone who's like a native English speaker because we are working with more and more like foreign clients, and some of our presentations are like in English now, or more and more of them are. And so like that's what we're looking for. And he mentioned that opportunity to me. And like at the time, it honestly was a bit scary because I was not even quite 2 years in to my time at JP Morgan in New York. And so it seemed like relatively soon to be like, I actually probably thought I would work maybe like 4 years or something like that, 4 or 5 in the States, really kind of establish myself, even though now looking back, I'm like 4 or 5 years is nothing, but at the time I thought that'd be significant. And I was like, so it seemed kind of early, but it just seemed like such a great opportunity because I was going to be able to, I didn't have to give up this. And this was key for me. I didn't have to give up what I was pursuing. I didn't have to leave investment banking and totally start from scratch and go do, I don't even know, something totally different that wasn't going to build on sort of that skill set that I really was just, I was just kind of getting to the level I felt like where I could truly contribute and be a valuable member of the team. So I didn't want to give that up. I wasn't going to go, let's say, like teach English abroad. I wouldn't have done it. Maybe eventually, if no other opportunity came up, of course, I would consider stuff like that. It still would have been worthwhile for me. But the reason why I took this opportunity was just because it seemed so perfect. I could keep doing what I was doing, improve my quality of life a little bit, and live abroad in a place that to me seemed super cool. So it didn't end up being that hard a decision. It was just kind of scary at first.
Could you maybe compare and contrast, the personal life experiences of living in New York City and then moving to Chile, but also the experience of course, changing the bank? And I can imagine, as you said, you might get a bit better work-life balance as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, my case is pretty unique. Like the investment banking industry is quite unique, I think, in that you do work like a pretty crazy number of hours your first few years, and actually, honestly, beyond that. Like we're talking, 80 to 90-hour weeks, which is kind of unheard of. And I think they may even do a little bit less now. I'm not sure. But so anything would have been much better than that.
Right.
And like, honestly, that was kind of one of the things that was a little bit of a bummer. So I didn't truly get to experience in New York City just because I was working so often.
Right.
Like, even on weekends, I wasn't really experiencing the city that much. But it's okay. Like I do think New York City is incredibly cool, and I love the international aspect and the food and everything. But I'm really I'm one of my biggest passions, outside like foreign language and work is sort of like mountain sports. So like skiing and like rock climbing and stuff like that. And so it wasn't a great fit for that. And so when I moved to Santiago, which was like also like a financial, at least like a regional financial capital, and like big, has all the big city amenities and things like that and culture and food, but it's like an hour and a half from the heart of the Andes. Like that already was like a just awesome, really cool change. So love that. Work culture wise, yeah, super different. Maybe a lot more like informal. I mean, it's also hard. It's not an apples to apples comparison at all because JP Morgan is like one of the largest banks or corporations in the world. LarrainVial is like small-ish like regional investment bank in Chile.
Right.
So it's kind of obviously everything's going to be like quite a bit different. But maybe it wasn't as different as I was expecting. It was still like a kind of corporate environment. People were really serious and motivated about like advancing their careers and doing a good job. And maybe some processes were a little bit less documented, or a little bit there's maybe a little bit more room for like improvisation and things like that. But I would say it was more similar than I thought it would be. The work-life balance was much better, but again, I mean, most would have been.
Right.
They did eat lunch extremely late. That was the one thing I remember where I was like, how do you guys do this? I mean, they wouldn't take their lunch breaks till like 2 or 2:30 p.m. Like they like to get in, front load the day, do most everything, then go take a long lunch, and then come back and finish up with like, 4 or 5 hours. And like for me, that was super weird because in New York, it would be like go till 12, like run down, grab a sandwich in like 10 minutes and like be back at the desk, whereas like here, like we would go out as a team almost every day, unless you were just running with a project that was super busy. We would do that every day. And so that was kind of cool change.
So how long did you work at that regional investment bank? And then how did you ultimately become, a startup founder in the SaaS space? Why did you do that? And what was the process like in terms of starting things, maybe just logistically, but even, legally as well, and just getting everything going?
Yeah, sure. So I probably worked for a year and a half at LarrainVial. And I would have liked to actually stay longer, but an opportunity came up that I just didn't think I could pass up. So, I actually met the co-founder in our business, who's like still, co-founder today with me. I met him because his girlfriend at the time was working on like a kind of support research group, or basically just like a Buenos Aires based team, of JP Morgan, like of kind of that same group that I was working for in New York City. So I had interacted with her. We'd worked together on a bunch of projects. I thought she was super cool and super smart. And when I sent out the typical goodbye email that you send when you're working in that kind of corporate environment, and kind of blasted out to a lot of people and said I was moving to Chile. And she was like, oh, hey, you should meet up with my boyfriend. He's there. He works in tech. He's thinking about starting, a new company soon. He's got some ideas. I just think you guys will jive and have a good time, chatting and catching up. And so I met up, and like we were just kind of friends at first. We'd go catch up, have drinks. Like we actually did a couple like mountain things together, like camping trips, and we always just said like, oh man, we got so many like complementary skills and networks, and we just kind of enjoy like each other's enjoy like working together. At least like it seems like we would enjoy working together. Like we should definitely do something someday, but we kind of left it at that. And then he went back to Buenos Aires. But then later, like he contacted me and he was like, hey, this is the idea I have. I've have like the beta for this new product I want to build, which is a SaaS product. And it was basically like an enterprise social network is what it was called, but it's kind of like having like, concept is a little bit outdated now, but at the time it was pretty innovative. It was like having like an internal social network to kind of replace the sort of like static and super hard to use and like unfriendly, unsocial intranets of the time.
Right.
So an easier way to like share messages and files and projects like with your team with like a more friendly social kind of bottom up as well interface. And I just thought that was a great idea. And what I thought we were coming into is like, I was kind of coming from like a finance business, marketing background with a lot of contacts in the US, especially a lot of financial contacts. And he was more like, he's a programmer, studied like, engineering, programming, computer programming in school, had already like, been managing like a team of people doing like custom like dev work for a lot of like big artisan clients. So he had like all the tech skills and a big network of entrepreneurs in Latin America. And I was like, well, that's like a great mix because you can kind of pair up like opportunity,
right.
And lack of access to like capital and knowledge, financial knowledge, at least in Latin America with, kind of what I can bring to the table business wise,
right. Nice.
financial wise. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of how, and I just thought that was too perfect. And like, he had this idea. I really believed in the thesis. I thought I could help raise some money. I thought I could help contribute, as an operator, like as a founder on the business side of things. And I just thought it was a good opportunity because I guess at that point too, like I was kind of a bit, I didn't really want to I didn't see myself going with a very long, deep career in finance, at least in investment banking. I wanted to create a product. I didn't, at the end of the day, when you're in financial services, like your end product is just kind of like advice. They do many more things than that, and it's a super important service. But I just didn't connect. It didn't resonate as much with me as like creating a product that solves like a real need. It's like super tangible that you can kind of mold and can like be out there in the world, and you can see. Just seemed cool, and I always wanted to. I knew I didn't want to stay in the corporate world forever. I think you kind of know. I think everyone should maybe even go. Maybe not everyone, but most people should go try it because I think some people thrive on it and love it, and obviously. They can enable you to do a lot of really cool things working like these bigger corporations. But for me, I knew straight away, I was like, it's a feel thing. It didn't feel right to me. And I knew I wanted to work in a smaller company. I knew ideally I wanted to like be the founder of that company and be able to kind of control the strategy and the direction, have more freedom, flexibility in terms of like where I lived, what we were doing.
Right.
And then like obviously the financial upside as well.
Of course. Yeah. So did you just sort of set it up there? I mean, was it just the two of you running it there from Santiago, or kind of how did it evolve from that point?
So I ended up going, so he was back in Buenos Aires at this point because he received a really small seed investment from an accelerator called Telefonica. So accelerators are a great way to get started. Like if you do want to start a startup, you do have to give up like a pretty sizable chunk of equity. Maybe it's like, 8 to 10%, but it's, at that stage that you're in, it's kind of hard to say like what the odds are of that being worth,
right.
millions of dollars someday. Odds are actually it won't be. And yeah, it's just a great way to like, not only do they give you the capital kind of you need to make your first hires and like develop the product and start spending some on like your marketing campaigns, but also they give you some direction. So there'll be like classes and you can go and people will teach you like, hey, here's the best way to scale like your sales team. Here's, tips for like SEO to improve like your organic search traffic. Here's whatever it might be, kind of all the different like areas you might need to improve as like a new SaaS founder. And yeah, particularly, for new founders, like that's where I feel like accelerators are great because they give you all the knowledge and then also like networks. We ended up Telefonica even, which is like for people who don't know, it's the largest like telco in South America. They ended up becoming a partners of ours and like selling our product. And at one point, that was more than half of our revenue is sales through the Telefonica channel. So they can really help you out in a variety of ways in addition to the capital. So he was back in Buenos Aires doing that, and that's kind of when I joined. So I actually moved back to Buenos Aires. But we kind of always had the idea that we were going to leave and go to Santiago just because at the time, and probably still today, it's like definitely way more like pro-business. They have a lot of like government initiatives around supporting like, technology companies. So like startups and like, whether it's like via funding or via like networking events or via just kind of having like critical mass of like companies you can like network with and potentially partner with. And yeah, just a little safer, I guess, than Buenos Aires. I always love Buenos Aires. Like for me, Buenos Aires, I love that city. It's amazing. The people are incredible. The food is like insanely good. It's just like so fun and colorful. And obviously like parts of it are unsafe, but I really loved it. But just being someone who wants to pursue like kind of extreme mountain sports, it's like obviously not ideal. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. So Santiago, I did not like the city nearly as much, like not even close. Culture-wise, food-wise. I mean, it's very cool as well, but Argentina always kind of had a special place in my heart with like their music and their rock nacional is what they call it. Like they have so much good music too. But Santiago is a great fit because, I mean, it's so unbelievable to be able to drive like an hour and a half and be in the heart of the Andes, or be skiing, or drive 3 hours north, be in Atacama, like in this like crazy, amazing desert, go south, be in Patagonia, go west, you're at the beach. It's really, really cool location. Chile is like really blessed in that sense. Sorry, I just forgot you asked like who. Yeah, so it was just me and him, and then like another kind of tech person who was our CTO at the time. So it was like us three to start for a while. But we actually set up an Insti in the US kind of straight away, because we thought maybe, in the next year or two, like we would want to raise a funding round from a venture capital firm. And there's just way more access in the US. And then plus also the first kind of bigger round we raised, which was still more of like a family and friends round. Like I knew it was going to be mostly just kind of like my network investing in the round. And most of them were based in the US. And it's just like, people are a lot more comfortable with investing in a US entity versus like, and certainly than like an Argentine, like SA.
So it sounds like you really loved being around, all these mountains and all these great things over there in Chile near Santiago. But of course, you also moved to Spain. So if you could talk a bit about what the process of that was like, why you decided to do it, how did you decide on Barcelona and everything, that would be great.
Totally. So there was a variety of reasons. I mean, we were happy, I think, at a personal level in Chile. But I think there's a variety of factors. So one, we had tried to raise a couple funding rounds, and it was more difficult than we wanted. And so we thought at the time, I'm not sure this is really true, but at the time, like we attributed that a bit more just to being based in South America. And like, it's just a fact, like you do have like definitely less access to capital. There's way fewer VC firms. There's like, and like the VC firms that are there, their investment mandates, like their requirements, their valuations, it's all just much tougher than like in the US, let's say. Or even Europe. Like the US, I'd say, is the kind of most flexible in terms of like highest valuations, like at earlier stages, needing less sort of like traction before investing. Europe somewhere in the middle, and then South America is definitely the most strict. Like you, with much more traction, you would actually still get like, a lower valuation than you would in the States, with maybe more restrictive terms. The flip side of that, though, is that there are far fewer entrepreneurs in South America, so possibly it's much easier to stand out. Maybe there's fewer needs being met by really efficient, like, online SaaS solutions. So maybe there's more opportunity. There's always a flip side, right? But that is something to deal with. I think really though, just like we didn't have the right product, so I won't get too much into it. But we've actually pivoted twice. So we started with product A, didn't work as well as we want. Pivoted into product B, didn't work as well as we want. Pivoted into product C, which is Beamer, which is what we're working on now, and that has ended up taking off and working great. We're really, really excited about that. But it took a long time. And I think looking back, hindsight 2020, I think maybe it was also hard to raise just because it wasn't quite the right business model, team, opportunity, timing, But so anyway, in our minds, that was a thing, and maybe like less access to talent. I think that's could be a thing as well. Although like our dev team is currently based in Buenos Aires, and Argentina is definitely a great spot for like amazing engineering dev talent at honestly like a fraction of the cost of what you would pay like someone in the States or Europe. But that aside, for maybe other roles, it's a bit harder to find the talent maybe in South America, and I think that's less and less true. But anyway, so this was all on our minds, and I think we'd lived in South America for like 4 years, so. I at least I was kind of ready for, a change, I think. I had an amazing time, but like certainly it's not it's not exactly the same as like living in Europe or the States, level of service. It's just a bit different. I loved it, and I definitely will go back. But I think I was just ready for a change. So there's kind of the personal side, there was the business side, and then we're like, okay, well, do we move to the States or to Europe? My co-founder, Mariano, he's Argentine, so the States was going to be hard, potentially doable, but potentially expensive. And potentially expensive with like an uncertain outcome as well on the visa, which was like not ideal. And we knew that it was going to be highly competitive. It was going to be much more expensive for us just in terms of like cost of living. And for me personally, on a personal level, I was like, well, I'm not sure if I'm really ready to move back to the States yet. I kind of would like to explore some other places. So Europe kind of seemed like more and more a better idea because, okay, I'm from the US. I don't have any sort of like European like passport or anything like that. But Mariano and his wife do. They have Italian passports. Like their grandparents were Italian. So they would not have to apply for anything. I mean, they could just go, and live and work in Spain. I think they have to. Can't remember the whole bureaucratic process. You probably know a lot more about this than me, but they just have to basically say this is what they're going to do. Like, I'm going to go live in Barcelona. They're not going to be denied. They can go do it. And then for me, there was actually a special program for entrepreneurs, which I can send you more details. I don't know if you have show notes. Maybe in there. Cool. Because I will look up the exact program name and if it's still there. But basically, it was at the time, if you were coming over to Spain, there's a special like entrepreneurship visa. So you could go, and if you were going to be, now you just have to create a local entity. So we had to create an entity in Spain. And I think I don't think there was a dollar requirement, but it was kind of like they would evaluate a lot of criteria, like how many jobs you're going to create. So like if you sent, $1,000, I guess like it would be hard then to tell them like, hey, like hire like 5 people and grow this thing into this, really cool part of like your tech ecosystem. So I don't know if there's a firm requirement on how much money to send, but probably you need to send something. So we're looking, and I guess just to back up a bit, I mean, we knew Spain for sure, just because of language. I mean, because my business partners, Argentine, his wife's Argentine, our whole team's like Spanish speakers. And it's like one of the reasons we're going there, not the States, where possibly you have more access to capital and talent and more press and stuff like that, is so it would be like significantly cheaper, and we could kind of keep being like a really lean startup until we found something that really worked. If we went to like Germany, that wouldn't be necessarily like so much the case, but like Spain definitely is like quite a bit cheaper. So from a culture, from a cost of living, and because these special like visa programs is like definitely going to be Spain. And then why Barcelona? We just love it. I just think it's such a cool city. It's like a bit more international than, we were considering Madrid and Barcelona, and Madrid is super cool as well, but Barcelona is much more international. It's got much more of a tech focus than Madrid does. So just in terms of like networking and events and like people you run into and like VCs and Madrid just seemed a little more like classic, corporate, very Spanish, which they have everything. Of course, just kind of specifically. And then Barcelona, and then also Barcelona, right by the beach. You're right by like all this amazing rock climbing. You're right by the Pyrenees. It wasn't
easy decision to make.
Definitely the place for us, for sure.
But
Mediterranean climate.
But on the other hand, I have heard that, and I mean, just visiting there, I don't know because I haven't lived there in terms of the rent and so forth. But from what I've heard, I mean, Barcelona is fairly expensive. It might not be the same level as San Francisco or somewhere like that in the U.S. But did you think about even going to smaller cities or something just to be able to make your burn rate for your company even less?
That's a good question. We didn't really. I think for us, I mean, I guess Barcelona is not super cheap, but it's not, at least when we moved, this was 5 years ago. Rent, I think, is the one thing that, is maybe a bit, closer to like maybe what you'd pay, but it's still nothing like the more expensive cities in the States.
Sure.
And that's just because, you have to compete with like other tourists. But the thing is, we weren't just going like, hey, let's go for 3 months and check it out. A 3-month Airbnb and a furnished in a really nice spot downtown Barcelona. Yeah, that's that's going to be expensive. But
Right.
we were signing like year-long leases. I didn't, but like my business partner was like going for like an unfurnished place, like, and like, so it's like we were kind of like we're staying here for a few years.
Got
So
it.
I think that probably helped make it a little bit cheaper. And then smaller town, I think we're still in the mindset then, especially then too. Nowadays, it's probably even less just with how remote everything is. But we wanted to be in a bigger city for the networking and meeting people and like meeting face to face with like VCs. We still thought we were going to raise like a funding round at some point. And I guess we both personally like bigger cities, just in terms of like everything it has in terms of meeting people and the restaurants and, the opportunities for like going out and bars and stuff. So we both like bigger cities, but with great access to nature.
Right.
That was what we wanted. And Barcelona really hits that super well.
Nice.
And it's also not super big. I mean, it's big, but it's not huge.
Yeah.
I mean, where I'm from, Dallas is much bigger than Barcelona, actually, which is funny.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't feel that big, and you're walking everywhere. I had a little Vespa moto thing. I could zip around everywhere. There's not that much traffic. Like, I don't know. It didn't feel like so big or so expensive, really, because of that.
So, of course, you've been speaking a lot of Spanish over the years, but I can imagine that when you actually moved to Spain, that the Spanish was quite different. So did it take some adjustment, or how did you deal with that?
For sure. And the accent I had, just because I think it was the first place I lived abroad for a while, and because most of our team is from there. So my accent was like very Argentine when I arrived in Spain. So it was funny. The Spanish, or like people from Catalonia as well, like they would all think, oh, this guy, I guess you're like an Argentine. Some would just think I was Argentine.
Right,
straight up.
sure.
And then some would think, maybe you're an Argentine who's like lived in the States for like 10 years. So your accent has just changed a little bit. But I could totally like pass as, an Argentine, basically. And it wasn't so hard to understand. Now, I was in, Barcelona, so there's a whole other kind of aspect of like, they speak Catalan there. They all, in a big city like Barcelona, anyone under the age of 40, 50, I mean, they're all going to speak like completely fluent, great, Spanish. It is different sounding. Like now it's funny, like I can actually really easily pick out if someone's speaking in Spanish from Spain, what region they're from. If they're from Catalonia, I can recognize it like instantly, because they do have like a little bit of an accent. Or if they're from Andalusia, which has a really strong accent, and so it's quite different. Yeah, like at first you get there, and like if your foreign language level is strong, I mean, you're gonna understand pretty much everything. You might just miss like a few words or a few like, kind of strange like phrases that it's not like you take the literal meaning of it just because you've never heard it, but like, by context and stuff, like you won't have much of an issue. I mean, when you go to like restaurants and stuff, like there'll definitely be, menus that are in like Catalan. You have to kind of learn how to read that, but like you definitely don't need to learn how to speak Catalan to interact and like feel like you're part of the local scene. Because like I actually did have a lot of local friends, and many people in Barcelona don't, and that's totally fine. There's like an amazing expat community there, people from all over, and that's totally fine. But I wanted to, and like especially like one of my biggest passions, rock climbing, I was like, it's probably a higher percentage of locals that are doing that. So I had a ton of friends that were like Catalan, and I would read like, I don't know, like climbing like topos and stuff, and climbing maps, describing routes and stuff in Catalan. And like, so I did learn a bit, but like, you definitely don't need to be fluent in Catalan to like, I mean, they speak perfect Spanish. Like you speaking Spanish, it's going to feel like totally local kind of experience. And then if you want to learn it, that'd be great. I mean, of course, like they would be super stoked on that, and I'm sure it'd be a really cool experience. It's just, for me, it was a calculus of like, how much is that going to add versus like the effort that would be required to like become as fluent, so that like really it made sense to speak in Catalan and like not in English. Like that would be hard, For me, I didn't have time to do that for sure. But and I guess I just want to say, I mean, like you can definitely go there and like improve, your Spanish. I've just heard people say like, oh, don't go to Barcelona because they speak Catalan. It's like, well, no, like, I mean, everyone there speaks Spanish. Like you can totally improve your Spanish there. Maybe it'd be slightly easier, I don't know. And somewhere else you wouldn't have to, but you just maybe be a bit more, even more immersed in it. But I think you can easily like improve your Spanish there.
Did you find that Barcelona offered the business benefits that you were looking for as one of the main reasons why you moved there with the company in the first place?
I think so. I mean, definitely in one sense. So we were able to apply for a few kind of special loans or grants for tech companies. So that was something that gave us kind of extra runway to basically like survive, like as we were pivoting through those different products that I mentioned earlier. So that was great, and something that like we wouldn't necessarily have gotten in other places, because they were like special grants where it's like, normally you'd need, to have more traction, more revenue, like more paying customers, more cash in the bank, more assets for me to give you this, loan. But because you're like in tech in a strategic sector, and we want more people here in Barcelona like doing that, we will, fund your company. And so that was great. And they were both like, debt instruments. So weren't even giving up any equity. So in that sense, it was great. In terms of networking, definitely it was there. I think we could have done better in like getting out and like, but I just, at some point too, like, we just got so busy and like in our own thing, and like we probably didn't take advantage of that as much as we could have. But definitely there's a cool area. I think it's called At22, which is a new part of Barcelona. I think just like east of Poblenou, where they're kind of converting it into like a tech zone. So they're like trying to like, build a lot of cool housing for like people who work in tech, and then have like a lot of tech companies like with their headquarters there, have a bunch of like co-working spaces, have a bunch of like VCs. And so that's a really cool area, and we weren't exactly right there, and I think it's gotten even bigger now. So that would be something I think that'd be worthwhile to check out, like if you're in tech and living there. And yeah, they have a lot of publications we followed, and so yeah, I think so. But like we also thought, I think at the time we were sort of more had a bit more of like an enterprise kind of sales process, where we thought we were going to need to like meet up with like large corporations in person, and that would be great to be in Barcelona because there's a lot of like huge companies that are based there. And we migrated away from that product, pivoted to something else. It's like way more self-service, automated, completely remote, sales process. So didn't end up needing it so much for that, but yeah, it's a good place for sure. And definitely it was, much cheaper than like other places we could have been. So that certainly helped as well.
Are there any particular areas around town, the neighborhoods, that you would particularly point to and recommend to other folks to maybe check out if they're moving to the city?
Yeah, for sure. Like in terms of like where to live, or where to kind of like, So for living, I lived in an area called El Born, Born, El Born, which is super cool. It's just east of the Barrio Gótico, which is kind of, I would say, like the most like touristic part of the town. I really liked it because it's a good mix, I think, of, yes, there's plenty of like tourists and Airbnbs there, but there are plenty of like people living more long-term, like I was doing there as well. And so I think it would be cool to be in an area like Gracia, which Gracia is actually now like a little bit more, it's definitely got a decent amount of like tourists as well, but it could be cool to go to like a lesser known area that's super local. But I kind of like the mix, because when you do have that mix of like tourists there, it's like, well, what do they put there? They put like really nice and fun restaurants and like really cool bars. And so like, it just kind of makes it to where the different like entertainment options you have are probably a bit more when you have that kind of mix of like tourists and locals. So I thought Oborn was really cool for that. And it's very walkable and, very pretty. So that area is really cool. The area I mentioned, like Poblenou and At22, definitely that's a good area to check out as well. It'll be significantly cheaper than El Born, which is not going to be cheap. So if you're looking for like a something on, I guess, like the cheaper end, like that's probably not the best place to look. Poblenou would be quite a bit cheaper, and there's that cool like tech area, and it's also kind of goes right along the beach. So you have access to the beach. Like you could even be like, a 5-minute walk from the beach, and not the part of the beach that's right next to the Barceloneta, which is a super touristy area town, which like I don't like as much. There's some good like restaurants there, and I would run there occasionally, but it's like if you just go, honestly, if you just walk 5 minutes east of like where all these people are, it's like no one will be there. It's like the same beach, maybe better, and like local chiringuitos, which are these like little kind of stands. It'll sell you like a caña, like a little beer, like, some like seaside snacks or whatever. Like, so yeah, Poblenou, good spot as well,
Nice.
for sure. And then there's lots of cool town, like the suburbs of Barcelona are amazing too. So if you want to go just like a little bit further out, like it would definitely be much more local feel, but much cheaper. You can live like in the mountains. That's one thing maybe people don't know about Barcelona. There's lots of little mountains kind of all around the town too. So yeah, there's lots of cool options.
So it sounds like you had a great setup there. You love the place. You lived there for quite a few years. So why did you leave?
That is a great question. And I hope to never kind of not be traveling to and spending time in that area, because it's so special to me and I love it. I have a ton of friends and I love the climbing there and I love the food scene and just everything about it. So I left. I knew at some point I'd probably want to at least come back and try living in the States again, because it had been 8 years for me, a little over, that I've been continuously living abroad. I was lucky since I was working for myself most of that time, or a lot of that time. I would travel back frequently and I would spend a few weeks, maybe in a month, like in the States at a time, and do that 2 or 3 times a year. So like I was coming back often, but yeah, I just felt like it would be an interesting experiment to try again what it was like living in the States, like especially at this new kind of stage of life. Because I mean, last time I lived in the States, it was just, a year and a half out of college. So I just wanted to see if I'd like it. I thought it'd be fun to come back and like be a little closer to like family and friends. And I had like both my brothers living in Denver, and I had already had on my mind like that Boulder, Colorado would be an amazing spot to live, because it's that same like smaller city, tons of amazing restaurants, but all the great things you'd want like in a city, like entertainment wise and networking wise. But it's like right next to unbelievable climbing and trail running and skiing. And that's kind of what I look for in a city. It's like a city, like a proper city with like, some really cool things to do, but that's got like great access to the nature. So I was like, since my brothers are living there, my parents are like spending a lot of time also like in Colorado in this small mountain ski town, I just thought, why not give it a try? And then the pandemic hit. That was kind of the catalyst. We were discussing this before we pressed record, but the pandemic over there in the early days was really tough. Like you could not. So I was there, in March, and like for the first I think couple months, like you really couldn't leave your house for anything other than going to get food, going to, like the hospital, going to the doctor, a family emergency, or going to the bank. I think that was it. Like those 4 things. Like if you didn't go out and have like a justified, I think at one point like you even had to like fill out a form online and like have that form on your person of like why I'm allowed to be outside. You had to be at home, and I was like living by myself at the time, and it was just not that great of a situation, not to even be able to like go out and like exercise or like run on my own. Just seemed a little, and I knew like it wasn't like that in Colorado. So, it just seemed like, why not? Like, I'm just kind of feel like I'm wasting my time by myself.
Yeah.
Here, like not really being able to do much. Like I might as well go back and like kind of see how things are. And I was already planning on doing it maybe the next year. So yeah, but my kind of longer term goal is to really, like I was mentioning, kind of split time between the two places, probably at least for the time being, skewed a bit more towards spending more time like in the States. But yeah, I mean, I left like, a car and like a little kind of van life type setup in Spain, and I have all the intentions of like spending a bunch of time there because it's a really cool region. I think that's one of the cool things that like, technology and remote work and all this like enables us to do is like, you can, if you want, and you can make it happen. I mean, you can kind of bounce around and like live. You don't have to live in like just one spot.
Yeah, exactly. So now that you've been back for a little bit, how has the readjustment been? I mean, of course, these are unusual times to say the least, but as you were away for those 8 years and now you're back, what's it been like? And do you have any like major impressions or takeaways so far?
Totally. Yeah, I think the transition was relatively easy. Maybe it is because like I was coming back pretty frequently. I probably spending like maybe 2 months out of the calendar year in the States. So, I guess, transition wise, nothing was super, super tough. I was doing, again, the exact same job, like the exact same thing I was doing over there is what I still do here. So work wise, just the time zone thing, but easy. I mean, I just, start the day earlier here, which most people do anyway. So like, that's not, we're not like going to dinner at like 9 or 10 p.m. over here like they are over there. So like, I mean, it's kind of like easier to have the earlier schedule anyway. I think I miss the sort of daily exposure to the foreign language, like just like walking out to cafe and ordering a cortado and just like, having that interaction in Spanish every day. I miss that, but I also still kind of get it because all my team are Spanish speakers. Actually, I still speak it. I mean, if I'm not speaking, I'm at least like on Slack, like WhatsApp, like writing it and seeing it. So I'm glad I still have that exposure. I think it would have been tougher if I didn't have that.
Right.
And yeah, I miss over there. Just, man, it's so amazing, like how many places there are to travel to that are just like unbelievably incredible within like a 3-hour drive from Barcelona. Whereas like, I don't think there's anywhere in the States really where you have that, but or it's definitely less, let's say.
Yeah.
So I kind of miss just being able to be like, well, where are we going this weekend? Well, let's go to like this amazing, like, rock climbing crag, or we're going to actually just like pop over to France and like, go here. We're going to go to the Pyrenees. We're going to go to the beach. We're going to go to, and all like, 2-3 hour drive max, maybe less. So I miss that aspect for sure. But, I've gained like other things. Like it's been fun to like come back and like reconnect with friends, reconnect with my brothers and family.
Sure.
Not that we were like not, but just, being able to like see them on like a weekly basis versus like, once every like 3 or 4 months.
Sure.
Yeah. And I could go, I mean, it's been good. Like, and I think also it's been less hard because I knew like, I have all the intention of like spending a bunch of time there. Like I'm going in October,
right?
And I'll spend a couple months there, and then who knows this winter? Like we'll see.
Nice. So, do you have any other advice or thoughts for listeners, viewers out there that are thinking about trying to make a move, whether to South America, Latin America, or maybe into Spain as well?
Yeah, that is a really good question. So I think the foreign language definitely helps, and that's something you can certainly practice and get better at without like before you move. I think if it feels like it's something you're forcing, then you need to like really question like whether, because I'll just say like for me, it just never felt like I was forcing myself to do it. I was craving more. I was like, I want to read more books in Spanish. Like I want to be watching these shows. And like, I think that definitely helps. It's probably not the only way, but if you feel that, I think definitely like embrace it and do it as much as you can before you go, because I know that my experience was vastly different than other friends I know who've been abroad who like didn't go knowing the foreign language and maybe not taking the time there to learn it for whatever reason. And I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I can definitely just say that it's really cool when you do have that kind of like component, the foreign language immersion component to the experience. I would say don't rush it. Like, again, like I kind of wanted to go straight away, but I'm really glad I didn't because I gained a lot of experience in networks. And actually what I did ended up facilitating me going anyway. So I would say be strategic about what you're picking to do in your home country. But, and like ideally, if you can have some link or see kind of make some path to where that's going to lead you to being abroad, maybe that's better. But yeah, don't force it, don't force it. And then at the same time, like when you see the opportunity though, jump on it.
Yeah.
Just don't be afraid, do it. Like just go. It's going to be kind of hard, but you'll figure it out. It's like kind of part of the fun, part of the process.
Yeah, I think we have arrived ultimately at the sort of same conclusions, which is that it was good to start out in the US with our careers and be able to find a way to leverage those internationally. And of course, as you said, having the passion and really feeling a personal motivation, a personal drive to study the language, I think is really important if you want to try to pick it up. And it can, of course, transform your experience as well. So I think we we come from quite a similar background in that perspective. But as far as, our listeners being able to follow you and just see what you're up to, or of course, giving more information about your company and how they can get more info on that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the company we're working on is called Beamer. It's a really cool solution for SaaS companies. So if you're like managing a startup or have like a website or a blog or something, it's basically just like a really cool way for you to notify your users about what's new, whether that be like product updates, like new features or improvements or things like that, or just new blog posts, new content, whatever it is. It's kind of like a plug and play change log with a bunch of other announcements modals and then a bunch of like feedback options. So you can really see like, hey, what are my users what they actually think about my product, what they think about this specific update, or what they think about my product or service in general, track how it changes over time or by user segment. You can tell them like what you're planning on building via roadmap. So yeah, it's just a really cool tool for like product teams, especially if you have to deal with like, customer marketing or like product marketing. And yeah, that's getbeamer.com. I'm sure you can put a link maybe somewhere.
We will. All right. Well, thank you so much, Spencer, for joining us today. It's been awesome to hear about your journey in so many different countries, exciting places, and learning languages. So look forward to keeping in touch, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate it, David. Thanks for having me on, and really excited about what you guys are doing as well. It's a really cool service. So good luck, and I'll be excited to follow along as well.
Thanks so much. Hey guys, don't forget to like our video, subscribe to our channel, and leave your comment below. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Expat Empire. We help people to move abroad through our personalized consulting services. For more information, check out expatempire.com. Thanks, and see you soon.